family. I just want to do a quick sound check to make sure you guys are hearing me. I'm so excited on this Hope Day because, we don't do hunts around here. And today we're going to start off this particular summer season with talking about stuff that actually can make us feel sad, but I hope that it would help us understanding in all ways what is happening in this world. So I'm trying to make sure you can hear me. So let's go. If you are on, please type, share, like this entire video. I'm so excited to be back with you. Hello. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share on my Facebook. Hi, hello. And I just want to make sure, type below if you can hear me because I'm not hearing anything. And I just want to make sure that my first day back, I get to talk to my Facebook family. I miss you guys so much. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to share, and like so that we can get our viewers back. A lot of people don't know we are back. So let's see. hopeMORE. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. So, hi, Anthony is doing big things, Mr. Producer. It's so good to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited about the topic tonight because so much has been happening in the world, and it's been like, I can't wait to get back on in my show because I really think that the issues that are happening in this world today, we need a little bit of hope spread on it, some prayer, and some policy. So I'm excited to be talking to you tonight about America's appetite for violence. Do we really need AR-15? So I need you to come on, like and share. I'm doing that to my page now, like and share. I mean, we have so much violence going on that even we have comedians being violent to each other, Chris Rock and Will Smith and all these other things that are happening. And so in this discussion about America's appetite for violence, we're going to be dealing with mass shooting, or in the case of like AR-15s, we're going to be dealing with suicide, dealing with domestic violence, as well as dealing with the question about abortion. So it's going to span a number of particular topics, and I'm just really excited to hear from you. And this discussion is going to be between me and you. So Anthony, I thank you for being on. I thank you for others being on. I'm going to ask that you please share and like. I'm sharing on my page without it coming through and you can hear it. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Let me make sure I turn it down. I'm going to share. Okay, share. Okay. Doesn't want to do it in the way I want to do it. Okay. Hi, Kenneth. How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. You know what? Today actually has been a somewhat rough day. I wasn't feeling good, having a big headache, but I'm really glad to be on. I feel very blessed to be on because a lot of things could have happened that would not allow me to be on, but God said yes. So I'm going to stand on that. Yes, I am. I'm going to stand on that. So, okay. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get started. If you don't know, my name is Hope Demps, and I have this channel called hopeMORE. That's lowercase HOPE, uppercase MORE, because it only takes a little bit of hope to want more. My particular channel deals with lifting families, upholding justice, and spreading light. I am a Christian believer, but the topics that we talk about are not necessarily in a church style format. I'm not here to give you dogma or to preach to you. I want to have a discussion. But my goal would also be to offer countercultural exchanges of what may be right or what may not be right. Again, I want to say hello to Anthony. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Kenny, for being on. It's so great to talk to you. So I should have done this before the show, but I have gum in my mouth. All right. Okay. So I have been looking at this whole AR-15 situation since we've had, so sad, a number of shootings involving AR-15s in the last month alone. As you all know, last week, this time at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, there was a 18-year-old who less than a week before bought an AR-15 and a gun and went into an elementary school, Robb Elementary School, into a fourth grade class and killed 21 people, including 2 teachers and 19 children. And I was like, okay, I know there's a lot of fodder already about gun control this and Second Amendment Constitution this, but I'm like, is like what is like one thing I can discuss that I at least haven't heard a lot of discussion about as of yet, in the sense of we sort of just jump over the weapon that this boy used, and I call him a boy. If he was probably of color, we would be called a young man. But this 18-year-old who came in, we'll talk about, okay, well, maybe had mental health issues, or he didn't have a good home life. He wasn't living with his mom. He was living with his grandmother. Maybe he was upset. Maybe we could have had some type of red flag laws to sort of follow if he had any problems at school. But here's what's crazy is that he had no record or juvenile court record, so that wouldn't work. And then we talk about like all these things like video games that are violent. And I'm not saying that none of those things are valid, but what I am saying is that why are people jumping over the fact that this 18-year-old had a automatic or semi-automatic rifle in a classroom and was able to shoot so many kids in so short a time? And then we get in the news and the media and we find out that the police who came upon the school situation, at least some argue an hour, other out argue 45 minutes, stood outside the school, afraid to go in. Well, I say afraid to go in, caution, however you want to use it, because why? This kid had an AR-15 rifle. So they were scared to come in because of the firepower behind one individual. So I want to look at today is like, why do we need the AR-15? Like, why are semi-automatic rifles allowed and why can't we give it up? Is it because of Second Amendment rights? What is this because of? But before we get into that, let's talk about what AR-15 is. It's a semi-automatic weapon that's a civilian grade, not military grade, and it allows it, and it's designed. Get this, it's designed to kill quickly and in large numbers. Designed to shoot quickly and in large numbers. And there are those who would argue that it may have some recreational purpose, like you can use it for target shooting. But here's the thing, and if you don't know much about gun wounds, one thing besides it killing a lot of people in a short time, the exit wounds of the bullets that go inside of the bodies exit in a way that's explosive. In other words, say with a handgun, you may be able to shoot someone, say, in the head, and the bullet comes out in one little bullet hole, and it still could be deadly. But when you are shot by AR-15, it explodes. It explodes all out of the body. So you would easily, as an adult, myself at my size, as an adult, if I got shot and just one bullet hit me in the shoulder here, understand the back is probably going to be like a golf or a baseball size hole, messing up a lot of different things in your body. So when we think about this school shooting that happened last week in Uvalde, Texas, you heard that parents were waiting to hear if their children lived because they were having to get DNA evidence. Why were they not able to be recognized? Could you imagine little 10-year-olds being shot just in the arm, in the face? They were unrecognizable because those bullets explode out of the body, and those poor babies were basically mangled. It wasn't just the idea that these children were killed, but they were mangled, like parts of bodies are flying off, and those few kids who were able to survive, they weren't just sitting there with dead bodies, but they were sitting there with dead legs and matter from their brain, because it's so destructive. It is so destructive. And I wanted to talk about, why are we in love with this destruction? Hey, hey Cynthia, thank you so much for saying hey. And I want to hear back from you. Why do you think we need AR-15s? Now, this is very interesting. We talk about, or what was talked about and what's talked about all the time, is that it is our Second Amendment rights to bear arms, and we take great pride in that. I am not a person that believes that all guns should be removed from the private sector. One, because it's not practical, because too many people already have them, and two, I believe people should have a right to protect their home or to go hunting. But the Second Amendment does not allow, or is not a free pass that we can own any and all kinds of weaponry. The right to bear arms does not give us the right to what? Have a nuclear missile privately owned that we can do what we want with. It doesn't allow us to have cannon, even though there are some historical societies who have cannons, but because they're so big and weighty, usually that's not the argument. And in fact, what's amazing is that in law in the United States, in 1934, they passed a law in its 1934 National Firearms Act that restricted machine guns. So machine guns, which are automatic versus semi-automatic, are so destructive because with an automatic weapon, you just hold the trigger and it continues to shoot until its ammunition is gone. Whereas in semi-automatic, which the AR-15 is, you would have to hit the trigger even also slightly for every shot. But because it's so fast, the AR-15 would actually not take much time at all to unload 30 rounds. I believe that's the average size, 30 rounds. So this young 18-year-old could get into a space for under a few minutes and kill up to 30 people if he got all his shots right. So this AR-15 was not automatic, but the idea that in 1934 they restricted the use of machine guns amongst private citizens, and I'm sure that was a fight at that time. But in 1994, they tried to regulate, and they did ban automatic, semi-automatic assault weapons for 10 years. President Clinton signed that bill into law, and it showed a decade before and a decade after. The decade before, there had been more mass shootings. When that ban was in place, there were not hardly any in comparison. And so it decreased the number of mass shootings. So people who say, well, you know what? At the end of the day, will it really matter if we ban these things? People are going to do what they want to do. History says, yes, it does matter. It would matter to you if you were that parent who had just seen their child at awards day, and they were in that classroom and the person was there with a handgun versus something that could discharge 30 bullets one moment after another. It could have been the fact that someone passed away, but it very well could be that they would not have had such a big number of people to die. If you don't believe me, let's think about it. Even though I will get back to the fact that Uvalde, Texas law enforcement, I believe, failed, and a lot of people are talking about them not going in soon enough after 45 minutes. But let's look at Parkland. Parkland, you remember Parkland, Florida. It had the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where on my birthday, February 14th, I think it was 2018. Let me make sure I'm right. 2018, 17 people were killed from 3 floors. Guess how many minutes the gunman was in there? A little over 6 minutes. It was like 6 minutes and 30 seconds. He was in there 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I believe once he left, the police went into that particular building like 3 minutes after. So with only 6 minutes, and that's going up and down stairs, this guy with this AR-15 was able to kill 17 people. So it's really a blessing that not more people died in the Texas Robb Elementary School shooting, because he was alone in that classroom, which it was actually two classrooms adjoining by a door. It's amazing that any of those kids came out alive, because he was there with them at least 45 minutes to an hour before there was any intervention. Why did I mention numbers? Because I believe that one of the issues with the assault weapons is the fact that it can kill so many people in a short time and leave law enforcement without the ability to actually address the shooting. If you have a person shooting with a rifle or a handgun, God forbid, people will still possibly lose their life or be hurt. But surely in 6 minutes, I doubt that 17 people could be mowed down with a handgun or a rifle. Or better yet, if the police came upon that instance, they wouldn't wait 45 minutes to an hour to go inside and confront the shooter. Because let's admit it, they're people like we are. And I imagine if it was up to us, even though we didn't make that oath to serve and protect, I believe that thinking about the situation, the idea of like, okay, I have this, police officer rifle. I don't know much about firearms, so forgive me. But this guy has this automatic weapon at his disposal. It's likely that whoever the first people to approach will end up dying, and they weren't ready to die. So isn't it problematic that America has a rifle that or a gun that's allowed to citizens that even scare and back up law enforcement? Yeah, some people argue that the way to handle a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, let's just say we're not going to have, or I don't believe it's possible or even smart to have pol- police officers have less responsibility for protecting our schools and our churches and our malls and our grocery stores than teachers. What's next? The cashier needs to be strapped. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But we hold on to this vestige of we need our guns, kind of guns, but we have already shown history starting in 19 not starting, but in 1934, automatic weapons were banned and restricted. Why can't we restrict these semi-automatic? Now, you look at these other numbers. Think about Las Vegas from October 1st, 2017. 58 people were shot as they were attending a music concert, and the man was held up in a hotel room. 58 people. Unless there was an explosion, a bomb, typically the regular type of rifle, you would not be able in that short of time to be shooting that many people without first being confronted. And the list goes on and on. Pulse nightclub in Orlando, 49 people dead. 49 people dead. And it's interesting because I recently saw 49 Pulses, which is a documentary on Prime Video. I would suggest anybody watch it. There was one police officer who was giving his description of going in and seeing just piles of body just piled up against each other. And he went to try to help one person up, and shooting started happening. And he said he just laid there with the body. No one's trying to play hero when you don't know where the shooting's coming from, but you hear that is fast and is violent, and you already see the death in front of you. I just think that the idea that we just skip over how powerful the AR-15 is so much that it makes experienced law enforcement freeze. They were there for 3 hours, I believe it was 3 hours before they actually confronted the gunman. 3 hours. It's amazing that anyone got out alive after the first few minutes of shooting. Then we have, everything, and everyone knows about December 14, 2012, Sandy Hook Elementary School, first graders, 27 people killed. And I think 6 of those were staff. Those are babies. How in the world can we feel that we can address all these other issues, mental health, security at schools, let's see, whatever, flagging, red flag laws and checking background checks, and not think about the actual instrument, the weapon of mass destruction that we're allowing people as young as 18 to get, and then be able to use it after they purchase it, and in some states like Texas, without even having to be licensed, or I won't say register, but not, without even having to be licensed. That just doesn't make sense. So I've been thinking a lot about this. And before we leave, I do have some people and an organization that you can connect with if you are like me, wanting to know more about how you can be involved. Because, you know, people like me and others, we get on here and we talk about what we don't like in the world, but it's like, what can we do to change it? And I think it starts with us keeping up the pressure in our particular Senate to make our senators actually vote on the legislation the House has already passed over a year ago, to let it go to a vote. Do not be cowardly. And those who don't, let them have consequences. But okay, let's break certain things down. I've already talked about, like, do we need AR-15s? In my mind, no, we don't. There's not, I mean, shooting practice, I get it, but come on, is it worth people's lives? You can't hunt with it. You shoot a deer with AR-15 and you're missing your meat, right? Half of your game is gone. So I believe I've come up with, and I'm not the first to come up with it, but I believe I know the true sense of why we don't want to give up, or why there's a struggle to give up AR-15s in America. So I want you, as my audience, I want to see if we could be on the same wavelength. I want you to put in the comments, why do you think that there's a struggle for some America to give up AR-15s or semi-automatic rifles? So I already mentioned the Second Amendment, and I understand it, and I appreciate the Second Amendment, but we already seen that the Second Amendment does not give a open door to any kind of weaponry that's out there saying that we all can have it. I mean, we go and kill other nations for even trying to have a nuclear warhead. So we must understand that everybody can't get or should have every weapon. So I believe if AR-15 was banned, that the Second Amendment would still be in place. They're not talking about taking all of your guns, even though some proponents of gun control sometimes scare people because they believe that will happen. Or some people say it's a slippery slope. But let's see, between 1994 and 2004, it wasn't a slippery slope. They didn't go after any other particular gun laws in dealing with taking away a person's right to possess. Now, some people say in this argument about AR-15, we shouldn't ban them because basically people will find a way to hurt people if they really want to. If they really want to. Hey, people will do drugs. People will smuggle in the country illegally. People will drive and speed and pass the limit. But what do we have as safeguards? We have Border Patrol. We have state highway patrolmen. We have all these type of safeguards to try to check. We have the DEA trying to check illegal activity. But when we're dealing with this semi-automatic rifle, who is checking, especially in confronting the shooter? While they are killing our people, there is less restriction. So the idea, or there's less opportunity to actually confront in the shooting, when our law enforcement don't have the ability to act as quickly as they would, or be as successful in confronting the shooter when they're dealing with someone who basically has a military style weapon. And just the idea that people are going to hurt people anyway, is that how we deal with our public safety? Like, oh, someone's going to get shot anyway. Well, I tell you, can we just not make our schools or easy targets, and our grocery stores easy targets? And then public safety. I think about the COVID matter in 2020, and we were put in a lockdown, and depending on the state you were in lockdown for a while. And here's the truth, and a lot of people sort of ignore this as we think about the history of COVID. Our lockdowns were not necessarily to keep people from ever getting infected. Our lockdowns were not just, okay, let's hold people in place until we get a vaccine. Remember, the overarching public safety reason for us having the lockdown was to minimize the pull on resources to help treat people. We had hospitals galore filled with sick people. There were surgeries that were canceled. There were not enough nurses, not enough masks. Why? It was a pull on our resources. So forget the argument about guns in the way that would offend Second Amendment and other things. Why don't we think about this in this way? The fewer shootings that are happening using AR-15, the fewer resources are needed to help safeguard our schools, our malls, our grocery stores. Because I don't know the exact number of law enforcement that was in the parking lot of the Robb Elementary School, but I do know this: it was way more of them than it was in this one shooter. But they were waiting. What are they waiting on? Tactical, um, tactical protection and shields and stuff. I mean, the border patrol, I understand, actually ignored the request to keep holding back to go in, because not only did they have the tactical unit, I think they had the cojones to say whatever's happening is more of us than those little kids, and we can do more to help them than those little kids. So similar to public safety reasons with the lockdowns, why can't we say, I know we can't automatically take up all AR-15s to those who are already possessing it, but from now until whenever, to the end of time, we are banning new sales of AR-15s. We're asking everyone to register if they already have AR-15s. Maybe we can have a buyback program, but it may not save every and all things. But when in America have we only enforced laws for protection only if it works every time with everybody? And the idea that, again, there would be a weapon out there that would cause police officers to be scared and scarce. What are we expecting the teachers and the students to do? And speaking of that, I know even with the Parkland situation, remember the resource officer who was there? And he was telling, like, that situation, the shooter was only in the building for 6 minutes. But the Parkland resource officer, he was about to retire. He was close to retirement, and he never engaged the building. In fact, he was telling other officers not to go in the building. Why? Because it was someone who had an AR-15. So let's just be honest. Are you going to be the first to volunteer to get the first bullet, regardless of how long you've been a military officer? But oh my gosh, it makes sense for public safety that we get these things off the street, minimize as much as we can. Now, then there's some people says, don't get rid of the AR-15s, give the teachers guns. If you're a teacher, let me know, out of everything you have to do, grading, being the kid's mama and daddy and counselor and referee for kids who are fighting. Now you're going to be expected to have a gun and to know where the gun not only is, but to quickly get it without causing more problems. But let me ask you, does that make sense? The way we take the gun or shooting out of the schools is to actually equip all the teachers with a gun. So putting more guns in the school, more guns. And if you understand the use of guns, often, even when it comes to personal ownership of handguns in your home, it's not unusual for a person breaking into your home to actually end up using the gun against you. So could you imagine the liability of little kids getting a hold of these guns? Or something happening and a kid get mistakenly shot by an overreacting teacher and someone who knows where the gun is. And again, I hope we're not thinking that these students need to be in a classroom where the teacher is sporting an AR-15, because what's she gonna do with that handgun when someone comes in with the automatic or semi-automatic rifle? Nothing. Oh gosh, it makes me upset. Other people say, well, you know what? All of this could have been avoided if we had a one-way in and a one-way out school. A one-way in and a one-way out. Why was that side door unlocked in the first place? And listen, I agree with you. Why was that side door unlocked anyway? But here's the problem. We have fire codes because historically we have had children, even though it's been almost over 50, 60 years that we've had children die in a fire of a school. But we know through history that having multiple exits that are available to be opened is actually safer when it comes to hurricane safety, fire safety, all these other kind of things. So we don't want to put a bandage over the thing that was created in order to help bring us safe. And then when it comes to one way in, one way out, I could imagine a dozen scenarios where that will work against the kids' favor. It'll make it harder for the police to get in to help them. And a person can have an elaborate trap and just take over one area and have the kids stuck in that school because they can't get in or out. So again, we're talking about mass shootings and the idea of mass being the most problematic because often these mass shooters are dealing with weaponry that an average citizen shouldn't even have. So we have to think, do we want our kids trapped? Do we want our kids in more danger? No, we don't. Then we have what I think is the ultimate truth. So come close, because I think this is really what the truth is. Why does America struggle or feel that we need AR-15s? Is that I genuinely believe, based on propaganda and other things that I see increasing in strength, like the replacement theory, there are many Americans who are convinced that they have to keep war-styled weapons because they expect a race war, a war with the government, a war where they would need to protect themselves in mass measures against whoever they perceive as the enemy. Shoot, some people probably like because of Armageddon. And if you truly believe, like the shooter in Buffalo, was that May 20? No, was that shooter? That was just a few weeks ago. The 18-year-old, another 18-year-old in Buffalo, May 14th, I believe it was. May 14th in Buffalo, he had this whole theory that many people believe that minorities and marginalized people will replace white people. And if you feel that, just like the guy who shot up the Charleston or the Bible study people in South Carolina, like you believe that you are in war or that race war should start or that you need to protect yourself, when you hear someone say, take away your military assault type weapons, you're like, no, no, no. I need to be ready for this upcoming war. And if that's the truth, that that's what you believe. And I think that that's what a lot of people do believe. And a lot of people are scared. And there are churches that support this as well, like this Christian warfare against the government. We need our guns. Then nothing that can be said, nothing about the youthfulness and carelessness of the shooter, nothing about gun control, nothing about the deaths of young people is going to change your mind, because in your mind and head you already are expecting that war is pending and you want to be ready. Now, is that something that could happen? Yeah, it can. We see Ukraine, a very, very developed nation, have another country come in and take over. But what's different here is that so many Americans are divided and don't trust other Americans, or like I said, they want war with them. So if that is a quietly kept, pervasive thought, then I don't know if anything's ever going to change. But if it is going to change, I believe this is the time to change it. This is the time to change it. Not just because people died. That's not all of the problem. The idea, again, that there were law enforcement sitting there trembling, not even allowing parents who were courageous enough to want to go inside the building, arresting them or holding and detaining them by handcuffs. These police officers were so hesitant to make a move on one 18-year-old with the AR-15. Did they have mental health issues? Did they have problems? All of them? What was the linchpin of their problem and fear? This kid had an AR-15. So let's be honest about it. Now, America's appetite with violence, we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones who have all these video games with shoot 'em up, bang, bang. We're not the only ones that watch violent movies. We're not the only one that participate in sort of like crime porn when it comes to murder. But why are we the only Western nation that has a problem with mass shootings? We're not the only countries that have people with mental health issues. We're not the only people that, criminals or people who've been in trouble with the law get guns. But what's amazing is most of these people who have done these mass shootings, they had the guns legally. So maybe it's not even the laws that we need to focus on as much as the action. We need to ban AR-15s. But we're hungry for it. We're hungry and we thirst for it. And I wonder why that is. And so that's what we're going to be exploring. We're going to be exploring. And I think the way I'm going to try to contribute to the conversation is just to ask, like, what is the need? And I feel like there is no other need except some belief that you're going to have to take up war-style weapons against some civil group that the government supports. Because the government has automatic weapons. But if you feel like, you know what, if Obama type person got back into the White House, we're gonna have to fight, then you're not nothing anyone can say can change your mind. But that's why I want the vote to ban AR-15s to go to the Senate and be voted on. Let everybody's nay be nay and their yay be yay, and let's start uncovering the real reason why people like the NRA and other gun enthusiasts fight so hard to keep those guns in the possession of Americans who have no other reason for it except to be prepared to shoot masses of people with a lot of carnage in a short amount of time. Well, thank you for joining me on hopeMORE. I'm so grateful to have all of you on. Thank you, Chandrika. And so, listen, if you are interested in looking into how you can stay tuned with gun legislation and how you can become more active in writing your Senate or actually sponsoring some type of activity to bring awareness to it, check out www.everytown.org. That's www.everytown.org, because you may get a lot of information and it'll be encouraging, because sometimes it is just discouraging. It happens so much now, people are numb to it. But I tell you, those older Black people mostly older Black people who got shot on a Saturday afternoon going grocery shopping, if that for me was such a shaking point, because I'm like, who would think that you would go in a grocery store and mow down people, mow down grandma? Like, it's just hateful and it's evil. And yeah, it won't change everybody and people still get hurt, but we can do something to decrease the numbers. It's not the only issue, but I don't love guns so much, or the freedom to have guns, to say we can continue to be blindly and deliberately ignorant of one of the biggest problems that we can have a faster impact on. This is Hope Dims with the hopeMORE Show, and I love you, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.